Now, on what ground can you tell China not to attack Taiwan or acquire Taiwan?
Okay.
Separation, but
But no, I mean, like, the ground is set.
Okay.
no, it's
Just-
not actually, because I would say this, right? Like, first of all, Venezuela is condemned unilaterally by the entire world.
Years down the road, things will change. But right now, might is right.
This
And
president is not sending troops to Iran.
Okay, so
This president is not sending 30,000 troops. There will be no troops, sir.
Yeah.
Not this
Islam
president.
will continue to be triumphant until there have been 12 Khulafa, all of them from Al-Quraysh.
The God of heaven will set up a kingdom that shall never be destroyed. Nor shall the kingdom be left to another people. It shall break in pieces all these kingdoms and bring them to an end, and it shall stand forever.
This is my brother, my executor, and my successor among you, so listen to him and obey.
My kingdom is not of this world. If my kingdom were of this world, my servants would have been fighting.
Whoso obeys me obeys God. Whoever disobeys me disobeys God. Whoever disobeys my commander disobeys me.
The Lord said to me, You are my son. Today I have begotten you. Ask of me, and I will make the nations your heritage, and the ends of the earth your possession.
Two systems of government, two visions for life on earth. Whichever is true changes everything. This is Christ and Khulafa.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Christ and Caliphate. On this show, we have a look at events going on in the Muslim world from a Christian perspective and the worldview ideas behind those things. Right now, Iran is on fire with various protests and uprisings against the government. The Iranian regime is blaming Israel and America for these things, and there's all sorts of noise about what is going on, and we're going to react to some of what's being said about that. But first, we are going to take a fun interlude to something the hero from the Sydney synagogue shooting said. So what we're talking about is a guy called Ahmad El Ahmad, a Syrian Australian Muslim who courageously disarmed one of the shooters by taking the gun out of his hand and got shot several times in the process. So he is now in America, and this happened when he met the press. So asked if he wants to see Donald Trump, he says, yes, of course. He's a hero of the world and a strong man. So I think, I mean, his opinion on Donald Trump does not make him any more or less of a hero, obviously. But I think it's interesting that it's actually symptomatic of something wider. There is kind of a Trump-Arab bromance out there. What do you think explains that?
Well, I would disagree with one thing you said already. That it doesn't make him more or less of a hero. It depends on if you have blue hair or not.
That's true. So
He could go from being a hero to being a fascist real fast.
oh yeah.
Yeah, I think there's too many things to unfold, especially with things happening on daily basis. I would say, big changes happening on daily basis. I think Trump is coming out as a king of United States rather than elected president of United States. I'm making a big statement again. You both will disagree with me, I'm sure.
Correct.
But here, decisions that has been made over a few days or months or so, and a lot of speculations about acquiring or attacking Greenland as well is going on. And White House said that, or if not White House, Marco Rubio or somebody said it, that they are thinking about Greenland as well, right? So putting that in a perspective and connecting a lot of dots together, I think the credibility that Donald Trump earned, in my opinion, particularly, has fallen down from a democratically elected president to someone who wants things his ways at no matter what cost. That's what is happening.
Okay, so let me agree with you a little bit and disagree with you too. I would say in general, the role of the U.S. president in general has far more unilateral power as a foreign policy institute than as a domestic policy institute.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So when it comes to international affairs, there's the U.S. Constitution is developed in such a way that it's much easier to get around that from foreign policy perspective than it is from a domestic policy perspective. So even with the Greenland thing, I'd make the strong argument Donald Trump does not want Greenland. What he wants, and here's why. There's two reasons the Trump administration wants Greenland. One is because for defense purposes, but secondly, they want to exploit Greenland's resources, and they want to prevent Russia and China from exploiting Greenland's resources. Now, if America takes over Greenland, it's got a much easier situation with the military situation for sure, but it actually has a much harder situation with the minerals situation, because American domestic policy prevents, like, it takes like 15 years to get a mining contract and permitting to go mine somewhere. So that's like that's like basically 2 full administrations, if they rule consecutively.
Right.
Whereas in a foreign policy perspective, what I think Trump wants is to negotiate a defense and mining agreement, which means that he can immediately inject minerals into the U.S. economy rather than doing that. So, again, I would say the U.S. presidency functions much more like a king in foreign policy than it does in domestic policy.
Yeah, it's the chief diplomat.
He is a chief diplomat, but I think with representation of Republican in the caucus, that's what you call it, right? I think he has a strong hold in general, given there is unanimous Republican support on his side too. I think
He's not unanimous.
No way.
I mean, what happened with the bill that Democrats tried to push for so long, and there was a freeze on that, and everything was shut down, and eventually they were not able to pull that out, the Obamacare thing. So when I say unanimous, it means they are in majority. Simply,
They're not. If they're in they're not in the majority. They have a narrow majority with dissenters, right? So Thomas Massey is a Republican, and he often dissents through Republican bills. If you truly had a Republican like effective majority in the Senate and the House, you would see way more. The Democrats would be, way less relevant. The only reason they're able to like push these sort of Obamacare kind of things is because they're coming close to being able to get stuff done. So they have a very narrow minority. If you had like, 50, if you had 60% Republicans in the Congress and the House, then they would just be irrelevant at that point. But the only reason they're relevant is because there's sort of a very narrow balance.
Yeah, still the argument holds that they're still in the majority. Doesn't matter if it's 1% or 2%. Still, they are in majority.
Sure, but that's by definition not a king, right? That is
again the policies that have been implemented. We have not seen that in United States history for so long. I'm not going back to John Quincy Adams, I'm not going back.
I would go back to the 1980s.
1980s. I'm talking about the recent past. I'm not saying, well, yes, Iraq again, yes,
Libya.
You did things and then you regretted it and you said, oh, we will not repeat those same mistakes again, and still you're doing it and you're doing it and keep doing it, and then you will regret those things again. Let me tell you this.
Not like Gaddafi didn't get ousted by a Republican, right?
No, that was Democrat. So it's
involvement.
I think my point, what I'm seeing, okay, if we're going to go back to the topic of like how there's a bromance, there's a budding bromance between, the Arab world and Trump. All you have to do is go back to Rami season 1. Right? There's this whole episode in Rami season 1 where he goes to Egypt to, see his relatives and everything. And they're like, we love Donald Trump. And when I went to Turkey, I ran into both sides, shortly after that video aired, like, oh, we love Trump. Or, we, I think one thing that they identify with, right, is something that's been played down here in the United States. So nationalism in America is associated with white Christian nationalism, right? But nationalism in Turkey is not nationalism. It's not the same thing. So when you see somebody going, well, I'm going to put America first, I'm going to make America great again, I'm going to go do this and I'm going to do that, that it resonates with those cultures a little bit more because they are nationalistic. That being said, I mean, outside of the policy stuff and Maduro, like when I was growing up, it seemed like Reagan was popping somebody every week. Like we took out Noriega, we took out, we were in the Philippines, we were in Panama, we were at war with the cartels. The war on drugs started in the 80s. And, people now say that the war on drugs was a bad thing, but essentially now we're in the war on drugs, round infinity. So I think that's the thing that actually connects with them. I think that's like they see these leaders that they have, like, well, and Americans will look at that and it will bring distaste, right? Or Westerners will look at it and it will bring distaste, but they'll go, I don't see anything wrong with that because
that's how our leaders acted for.
Well, and also let's look at one other thing too, like bribery, corruption. Right? In some of these other political assassinations, in some of these other places are rampant, right? Like, corruption in I can't even imagine how bad like corruption is in Mali or something like that, right? Like just picking someplace out of that.
Is it not?
If you're from Mali and there's no corruption, I'm very sorry. But you know what I mean?
There's
like
corruption everywhere, bro. In United States.
There is. And I'm from New Jersey. We are the kings of corruption. Nobody is better at it than us. But I'm saying that the ability for a leader to maneuver despite the corruption, right? And say, no, we're going to get this done and we're going to get this done and we're going to get this done. I saw an interview with Jim Jordan on Meet the Press, and they were talking to him about like, well, what makes you think that you can do what you did to Maduro, right? How is that putting America first? And he said, well, Trump is putting America first. And then he listed all of these things that he thinks that Trump has done to put America first. And they were all campaign promises. So that's different, right? Like if the president of Azerbaijan ran, right, and said, I'm going to promise you a better economy, lower food prices, lower gas prices, and all of those other things, you would look at that person and you would go, that's a good leader, right?
So,
and then if he decided he wanted to invade, I don't know, another country, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It puts him, this is I took a politics class, and this is the way you should look at it. Politicians have chips. It's like poker, okay? And they play hands, little hands, and they amass chips. And then when they want to do something big, they go all in, right? Mm-hmm. And they have a big amount of chips. So what every politician does, and that's what Obama did with Obamacare when he went for re-election, like that was his thing. He said, I have all this social capital and political capital, so now I'm going to push for this big thing.
Yeah, I would say this, James and I, Bars, both, when Donald Trump got elected, I supported him. I was in his favor, and I think I resonated with his rhetoric. There was so many things that he promised, and I liked it. And I think this is also related to human psychology, that we try to defend people that ideologically aligns with us. We try to create bias around them. We try to defend them no matter what, right? And I think one thing I learned over the years is having a neutral approach. When someone does a wrong action, I should have enough intellect or enough courage or enough mind to understand what's wrong and what is right. There has to be a clear difference between them. A lot of people don't do that. For example, a lot of I will not give Trump's example. I'll give somebody else's example. Jack is a leader of an ex-country, and he enjoys a lot of support in that country. And doesn't matter what he does, a lot of his core supporters will stay loyal to him and will come up with explanations defending his actions no matter what he does. So I always encourage people to have a lens where they can differentiate between right and wrong straight away rather than tending to their own biases.
Okay, but I'm saying, what if the recent actions through the scope of history turn out to be right?
Okay, how was Iraq right? How was
Forget
Libya
about Iraq.
right?
We're talking about now. Not talking about Iraq. We're not talking about
How's Venezuela's integrity being compromised?
Well,
okay, let me ask you this question, both of you. Now, on what ground can you tell China not to attack Taiwan or acquire Taiwan?
Okay.
separate issue, but
No, I mean, like, the ground is...
Okay.
No, it's not actually, because I would say this, right? Like, first of all, Venezuela is condemned unilaterally by the entire world for what they've done in the past 20 years.
Agreed.
Okay. And also, the majority of Venezuelans, both in the country. No, I completely disagree with you. All you have to do is go on Twitter. Like,
Twitter doesn't tells you the truth.
It tells more of the story than you think it does.
It's how we see, like, for example, Iran. Given an example of Iran.
Well,
given
no,
an
not
example
Iran
of
yet. We're going to get to
Pakistan.
Iran.
Okay. Given an example of Pakistan, you will see a bunch of protests. Doesn't mean all of Pakistan is protesting.
No, it actually, in this case, I think does, because no Venezuelans wanted him. He was working with cartels. Like, this is well documented. This is not like some political theory. This is not some conspiracy theory. The man was working with the cartel.
Okay, I'll take your words.
And on top of that, working with Russia and working with China. And, like, I'm not going to go like, oh, well, I know Venezuelans. I mean, this is a quorum.
Okay,
like, and not just of Venezuelans, of people in the world who thought that this was a bad dude.
Okay, it was a bad dude.
In America.
I want to talk about the China. I want to talk about the China thing.
Okay.
So let's. Well, here's what I'll say. The thing in Venezuela, it could be disastrous, right? I will grant that, and I think it's the kind of decision that's going to need to be looked at in hindsight. This could be the linchpin which unravels any sense of international law, or it could be the reestablishment of credible deterrence which establishes international law. I would argue China is much less likely to invade Taiwan today than it was 2 weeks ago.
Because they know that there'll be 30 Blackhawks over, whatever. Like,
it's not about attacks being pushed by the United States. I'm saying on what grounds. The question initially is if you can violate international laws, if you can go and attack a country's sovereignty and attack or capture its president, no matter how bad he is, how bad his country think. Pakistanis are against Asim Munir. Why you're not going and attacking Asim Munir? I'm just like where your interest line. Don't you understand? It's all about oil. Do you not understand that it is very simply?
I would say it's about oil in the negative sense. It's not about America has oil. It's about keeping oil away from Russia and China.
Yes, big part of
right.
I agree with that.
It's more about that than it is getting America more oil. America's a ton of oil already.
Yeah, but like I want to make sure that you don't get oil. It's like, who are you to tell somebody that you don't get
they're already getting it. Yes. I mean, they're interfering in our elections.
Who?
They're Russia, China, they're interfering in our elections. They're undermining our sovereignty. They were launching nuclear subs out of Venezuela. China was to spy on us. Russia landed like 30 bombers that can deliver nuclear weapons to like Miami in half an hour. Like, yeah, no, you're screwing with us. And it's the same things that they say that people are doing to them. but now they're doing it to us. So
Here's the thing.
I have no compassion for Russia or China in that sense, because they're also the same type of leader. They also run the same type of dictatorships.
Again, we need to come out of the mindset of we are the police of the world.
No, it's not that. It's what happens if somebody nukes Miami.
I mean, it's just fear.
I would say if there is no one who is the police of the world, then there is no such thing as international law. Unenforceable laws are not laws.
I mean,
we know that living in Seattle,
we
right?
can agree on sitting on a table and agreeing on certain policies that everybody should be held accountable to if there is a violation.
Held accountable by who?
By who?
By the group of people who set down the rules.
I mean, that's great in principle, but it never happens.
Because the UN, the way UN works is like giving the veto powers to certain countries, and how you expect the others to follow that.
I think you just fulfilled your own argument.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Right.
It takes the veto powers away.
So I would argue that the only reason the UN ever had any power was because America decided to be benevolent with its power. No, I mean, not entirely benevolent, but to a certain extent.
To an extent.
So sure. I would argue, here's what I would argue, that America is trying to reestablish itself as top dog in the world. It might work, it might not. Right? Sure. And if it works, then we need to be very conscious that we don't simply look out for our own self-interests.
Well, yeah. And also, if history repeats itself, that's what led us to World War II.
Right.
So we weren't proactive against Hitler.
Right.
Right. And then we got World War II. And then we got all of the mess that happened after World War II, and then on top of that, we spent billions of dollars rebuilding Europe and Japan, and putting the UN in a position where it could be the neutral mediator, but all it's done, I mean, particularly over my lifetime, has been ineffectual and corrupt. So, I look at it now like I'm not thumping my chest going America this and America that. You know what I'm saying? Like that. My point is that I don't think the other way works. I've been watching this my entire life. Like I don't think that the UN can step in and mediate anything. I don't think that it's been particularly effective in take Africa, for instance. The peacekeepers are raping young girls. Like that's a proven thing. So, why would I look at an organization that's ineffectual, right? And say, I mean, we're way off topic, but why would I look at an organization and say that it's ineffectual and then give it even more power? And then on top of that, it can't fund itself. It relies completely on like the weapons America makes. It's in New York.
Okay, let's agree on something here, right? Let's agree that we use same standards throughout. We will not choose one standard for us and the other standard for other. Let's agree that in the present world we live in, I hope that 50 years down the road, things will change. But right now, might is right. And whoever the mightiest is will dictate the terms of humanity, or how the humanity should look, how humanity should work. Because recently, there was a big pressure by Pakistani diaspora in the United States trying to tell the United States that there is a human right violations in Pakistan, because Imran Khan is in jail, and we tried our best to tell U.S. to tell Pakistani generals, we are not going to interfere in this. We don't care about human rights there. It's your own personal problem. But sometimes those human rights violations become international violation, and we attack people based on that. So my argument again is, define one set of rules and do not manipulate with those rules. Say might is right and that is the law, and you should all abide to that.
Okay.
Again, I honestly,
I don't think it's that clean.
But I would say that is a principle of
sure
of life, right? And the strong have power over the weak. That is how reality works, right? And as husbands with wives, right, we all understand this balance, right? We are stronger. We could win in a fist fight, and we never ever hit our wives, right? That's the basis. So that is the way the world is set up. So I would say the only international law is the law of God. God removes who he wills and installs who he wills.
Amen.
And now, again, that doesn't justify our actions. So what I would, here's how I want to put.
I would even say God has already removed Trump once.
Yeah. So here's where I want to land this. If, as events play out, Venezuela has fallen, if that holds, if Iran falls, this is going to move the dial to have America be the hegemon of the world. Like, it's a reassertion of that. And the reality is, Nicolas Maduro, the government of Iran, the Ayatollah, deserve God's judgment. But we should not for a minute think that we're being used in this way because of our inherent righteousness. It's our job to thank God for the good things he's given us and then steward these things well. If we let this go to our heads, if we become more arrogant instead of more humble as a result of this, then our empire will not last forever. We will be judged. We will divide. We have to have a posture of repentance and humility as a nation. Otherwise, our end will come too, just like every empire that's come before us. So, speaking of the end of empires, let's talk about what's going on in Iran right now. What's the latest of what you're seeing in Iran right now, guys?
It's getting worse. Of course, it's getting worse. And I think the evil regime is at the brink of falling apart or tearing apart. And that's a good sign. I think I like it. But what comes after it scares me the most.
Agreed.
It's not that your task is complete. Task was to topple the government. You accomplish your task. Now what? Again, that's where I'm scared. And I know I'll go more on it, but let's take on first.
I basically agree. I don't think it's quite a done deal yet, but it's hard to see how the regime survives long term. Whether they can survive short term or not, we'll see. But the momentum is all on the streets right now. I'm also worried about what comes next. My principle is that I've said time and time again is that I'm always very wary of revolutionary attempts to just delete the whole existing system and replace it with, well, we'll figure that out when we get to it kind of thing. Like, that makes me nervous in this situation. Now, Reza Pahlavi is getting a lot more support. Like, a lot of people are chanting his name. He's now become a major figure in this. But I do still worry about his competence to really do anything here. What about you, Ibars? What are you seeing?
I mean, it's as real as any other protest-driven movement, but I think I have a little bit more optimism than you guys.
Okay.
I think that when you've been oppressed for that long, and in that very unique way, right? Like, there are many regimes around the world, but there are very few like the Iranians. Like, it's this combination of a very literate, society with a ton of natural resources, that did have it had a democratic foundation, right? And then it collapsed or whatever because of things that make it collapse. It wasn't able to pivot. It wasn't able to change and grow in the way that it needed to. So I'm not sure that a reset of whatever happened before the regime is like exactly what you would want. But I think that the country is strong enough, can be strong enough financially to take care of itself. And I think that a lot of times when you see some of these other places that collapse, right? Like the main problem people are mad about is like housing. They're mad about corruption. They're mad about, the of course they're mad about the regime. They've been mad about the regime the entire time. Now they're blaming the regime, and now it seems like the regime is even saying it's our fault. I watched an interview today where they were saying that we're going to stop giving subsidies to contractors and we're going to give them directly to the people. So they're trying to buy them off, right? They're trying to say, well, maybe a little bit of extra bread in your pockets is going to help in this inflation thing. And I saw the president of Iran say that. He said the exact same thing. Like, this is our fault. We did this and we're open to negotiation. And that even tells me that there are people within the regime who are saying, like, this is a losing hand right now. We don't have the might. We don't have the leverage. We're sanctioned. Like, we don't have the economic power to be able to push through this. We can't crack down on people in the streets because the police are deserting and some members of the military are deserting. So what do we do to have a seat at the table in the event that we fall apart? And I think that whether or not that's legitimate or not, I think that's in the aftermath of a regime change. As long as those people don't get hung, in the streets like Mussolini or whatever, then I think you can have some kind of dialogue. I don't look at this and I don't see as thoughtless a thing as has happened. I see more like the Soviet Union collapsing.
I think there are two elephants in the room, not just one, right? Number one is our understanding of frustration of Iranian people. I'm not talking about the current protest. I'm talking about the pre-protest Iran, right? The frustration of Iranian was looked by us based on our interactions with Iranian communities here, or what we see on Facebook or Instagram or social media. And of course, social media reels feed to what we wanted to see, right? People who want freedom from Islamic regime, those people get been seen on those social media. So the point, what I'm trying to make here is the Islamic regime enjoys a lot of support because a lot of people in Iran are very Muslim people. They love their Islamic values. They want themselves to be covered. Yes, you can say 20, 30, 40. But if you say 80% of Iranian women want not to cover themselves, I am not buying it until you bring me a very, very solid proof. That's elephant number one. Elephant number two, Raza Pahlavi, for how long he lived outside of Iran?
Like, it's like 47 years or something.
47 years. How informed he is of his country. Just the news, whatever he see on the news. Or maybe he has some insider.
I'm sure he has some insiders.
Yeah. Okay, but he is not fully aware. He is not. He is so incompetent, in my opinion. He's so incompetent to go and take the role and lead the country in the middle of a chaos, in the middle of a turnout. What happens, and it happened in the past. It always happens when there is a weak leadership that takes over. Then there are factions which rises from different parts. And that it creates more and more and more and more.
So I completely agree with that. However, there's enough energy on the streets that he is the clearest example of a unifying opposition figure right now.
Agree. I mean, there is nobody else who can be, or maybe someone will come up from these protests or right.
But that's also plausible. And, and also, right, Reza Pahlavi isn't saying I'm going to become Shah again. He's saying he wants to see he wants to oversee the process of Iran becoming a secular democracy, right?
Yes, that's what we all want.
Right. Okay. So I guess then let's talk about going forward, right? So let's say the regime collapses, which I think is seeming pretty likely. You don't want to see, I take it you don't want to see American helicopters go and kidnap the Ayatollah or anything. But if the regime collapses, what do you think constructive American engagement should be with Iran, or do you think we should just have like none whatsoever?
I think, in my opinion, none. It's let the process be organic if they ask. For example, people of Iran in majority, not say 20% or 10%, ask for U.S. help, as a lot of people here are doing. Oh, I'll go on that channel, like why the protests are so immense and where is the United States and Israeli involvement in that. I'll go on that with proofs and everything. But for now, let's stick to your question. And you said yes, we should only help financially, resourcefully, or resourceful, whatever we are, not by military. I'm against. It's not about United States. Like a lot of people will think, oh, how you're anti-American or something. No, I'm not. I love this country as much as you do, but I am against certain basic notions because I have a very defined understanding of humanity. I give freedom. If I want my freedom, then I should also give you the freedom to be expected of my own freedom. So that's my core principle. That is the core principle applied to every single country out there, whether it's Cuba, whether it's Venezuela, whether it's Iran, whether it's Pakistan, right? Again, America should not, in my humble opinion, America should not be involved in anything in Iran unless asked.
So, okay, so how do you feel? So what I'd like to see, right, is I don't want to see American military peacekeeping force in Iran or anything like that. Let's say the revolution succeeds, the Ayatollah dies, flees to Russia, whatever happens.
He will flee. He will not be there. That's for sure.
That would be ironic.
Yeah.
He will flee.
Yeah.
Pretty soon. He is
So,
just.
How would you feel about if Reza Pahlavi goes back to Iran to be part of this, which I think he should at this point?
Yeah.
And let's say he's a sort of nominal sort of leadership figure. I think it'd be entirely viable for America to send like advisors, economists,
of course,
experts, right?
Yes.
Like
Yes.
basically, I would advocate a heavy economic support and a heavy consulting role.
Okay, let me flip the question to you both. Pahlavi comes in, and there start protests by the regime supporters. How you will tackle those? And there are big numbers. Let me be very clear. There are big numbers. If they come, rise, you will use violence, force, and justify that force and violence. Just like
by Americans?
Whoever. Pahlavi says, I cannot control them. America, send me your troops. And then troop goes and
This president is not sending troops to Iran.
Okay, so
this president is not sending 30,000 troops. There will be no troops, or not this president.
So basically,
you send tomahawks.
Well, I think that's also very different. I mean, like, prior to the United States involvement in World War II, right? We were not involved, and Roosevelt was aware of everything that was happening in Europe, particularly like with Hitler's march through Poland and all that other stuff. And he did not have authorization by Congress to engage militarily. And that only happened after Pearl Harbor was attacked. So he started opening up back channels and then sending, like munitions, right? And to England. So he was trying to fortify that one country against, the Hitler's obvious goal of taking over the UK, right? And I can see probably that happening from a military standpoint, right? Like I can see like, all right, we're not going to send, a fighting force there, but we're going to try and fortify the people that we believe are on our side. Even that you have to be really careful with. Obviously, look at what happened in Afghanistan. A lot of our weapons are being now used to attack our allies, particularly Pakistan. So you have to be really careful. And then you can go back and watch Charlie Wilson's War and look at what happened to all the RPGs that were sitting around and how they got used against us later. So I think the way I'm looking at your question is I don't know what the answer is. I really don't know if you have to step in and how much might you have to show in that situation to try and preserve that situation.
Mm-hmm.
I do know that this particular president has already dropped heavy munitions on that country on military things. And I think that if the regime wants to try and start up again after it's already been deposed and tries to find like strongholds, I think that will be what America will do.
Yeah, let's make a differentiation here, because what Sharjeel is asking about is not regime remnants, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a very different thing between, there's a sort of civil war
Yeah,
where
but I don't know if the regime sees it that way, right?
no.
Islamic rule versus liberal.
Yeah. So let's say you have Pahlavi comes to power, IRGC units reorganize, start a resistance. I have no problem with the future Iranian government having a war on that basis. But what I would have a problem with is them shooting unarmed protesters for crowd control. Right.
Yes.
Right.
No, because then you're back where you started.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So they it's really important that they not do that, and we hold them to that standard in whatever way we possibly can. But this again, that's why we want to send in advisors and economists, people like that, right? People who are going to sort of say, look, Pahlavi, you can't be allowed to panic here, because if you fire bullets at these people, then this all starts over again. Like, this is literally this mistake your grandfather made, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you need people who are going to be super, super smart and measured about it. And so I think best case scenario in my mind, Pahlavi goes back as a figurehead with a bunch of invisible, super competent people below him who are going to just kind of like...
Well, every leader needs that.
Every leader needs that.
Every leader.
But I think him, and he needs to realize that he needs to have a clear sense of that,
right?
Not a sense of...
I think the problem that I have personally is Raza Pahlavi is promoted by Israel and the United States. Maybe you do not know, or maybe you know and don't want to know, but there is a huge support for Pahlavi in Israel, or not in Israel, I'm saying the government of Israel and the government of the United States. So when you install someone that is of your interest, then there are expectations, right? I have seen, again, I'm going back in the past. I love history for the reason that when you go look back in history, the same patterns exist, and you can easily deduce a result that, okay, this is highly likely this is going to happen, right? So you will ask him to do however you want him. I'm not saying that you will ask him to do everything, but there will be some actions required by him, right? And what if 20 years down the road he changes his mind, or say 10 years down the road? About the involvement of the United States and Israel. First of all, do we agree unanimously that involvement in these particular matters is okay? And if it's okay, in what matters it's not okay? So that's the question I want to understand, because I think doesn't matter how bad it is, in my opinion, in my ground level opinion, interference in somebody else's matter, or particularly a country's matter, I don't consider it right.
So I think basically how I see it is, I'm not a pacifist, right? I believe war and interference should be kind of it's generally something we should do our very, very best to avoid.
Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes it's necessary. The only question is, when is it necessary?
Yeah.
So, for example, World War II, it was necessary.
World War II or the war against Hitler was necessary?
The war against Hitler and the war against Japan was necessary.
Okay.
Right. And I would say... And Italy.
Yeah.
And I would say that that's an example of American intervention done right, because in the end, we made the scenario a win-win for people who were our enemies at one point. And I'd make the argument, shelve for a second when it is right and when it is not right to get involved in a situation. I would say the wise thing to do at almost every juncture is if you're going to be involved somewhere, you have to make sure it's a win-win. So, so for example, if America makes Venezuela, the average Venezuelan, wealthier and not starving all of a sudden, then that's the kind of win-win situation, right? And so America needs to use its power in a way that is benevolent. So I would say, if you look at America's relationship with Japan, Germany, or even when there has not been a war, say Saudi Arabia, we have a ton of national interest in Saudi Arabia, but in general, that I would say the U.S.-Saudi relationship is actually kind of my model of how I'd like to see America interact with different countries. Okay. So no war, positive business interactions that are mutually beneficial for both countries, and beneficial cultural exchange. Right. That's my dream scenario.
I would say that this administration would probably agree with you.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm talking about involvement. In what cases can we be involved in foreigns, or where we can do foreign intervention? You talked about war, but I'm talking about intel-based or stirring up problems in a country. We did this in Libya. If you disagree with me, I'll give you proof.
No, I know we did this in Libya. I agree. At least we were heavily tilting the scales.
Yes.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, and same thing we're doing in Iran right now, right? So to what degree is doing this is right, and when it becomes right, and where we can call it wrong, or when it becomes wrong? That's my basic argument, because I'm confused. There are so blurred lines down there. In my opinion, maybe it's very clear. How I see is very clear, but how I do not see, a lot of people are very confused in those terms. They cherry pick things. So that's why I want to get.
I think that there are 350 million people, give or take 10 or 20 million, in this country. And if America goes away tomorrow, the world is in chaos. So you have to have, and just there's no getting around it. You can't, if our military stops enforcing certain things, if America just disappears overnight, there's a huge economic hole in the country, in the world.
In the world, yeah.
Right? The banks are here. There's so much going on and so much going through this country right now.
Even China goes zero, there will be impact.
No, because
yeah, right.
I mean, I'm on Temu every other night looking at stuff, right? So
there are great economic power that dictates.
Yeah, but I mean, so what I'm saying is that if you don't have a country that's acting in its own interests, that is in that unique position, right? Then you are going to have chaos no matter what.
Okay, so with your definition, if I'm understanding it right, a country itself defines what is right and what is wrong, and how they should proceed with right and wrong.
I would say God defines that. But ultimately,
but gods are different, and Indian God is different than American.
Well, we're not talking about Christian values, or
we're not. I'm not talking about the standards we hold individuals to.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying present day America. And go ahead, you were going to say something.
Yeah. So what I would say is one thing I will grant is the way that these things are enforced around the world is horribly asymmetrical. So, for example, if we lived in a just world, somebody would have deposed the North Korean government a long time ago,
or Nigeria.
But
right.
I mean, again, in North Korea is a no-brainer.
Yeah.
The Kim family are evil dictators. Everyone's starving, and the leader is fat. Right? It's literally, it is the most evil government on the planet.
Yes.
Right. If we were enforcing those kind of things consistently across the board, he'd be gone. Which comes to my pitch. Here's my pitch for world peace. Okay. We say to China, you can't have Taiwan, but please take North Korea. So it's like, again, I have problems with the Chinese government.
Really sure that I'm not sure that the South Koreans would love that idea.
Yeah, but it's like, again, I'm sure they prefer to have China as an immediate neighbor than North Korea, though.
Maybe.
Right?
Maybe.
It's like, again, I have plenty of problems with the Chinese government, but
North Korea is weak and propped up by puppet states. China's not weak. Then all of a sudden you have your not weak kind of malevolent neighbor.
Sure. But what I would say, though, is that as much problems I have with the Chinese government, it has actually done good things for its people. It's not been about it's not purely been about the enrichment of Xi Jinping, right?
Sure.
They've done they've done amazing things to lift
up your communities. I mean, like where China is right now versus where China was, say, 40, 50 years ago. I think China infrastructure has improved.
Versus 15 years ago, man.
Yeah.
It's like
a lot of things have changed.
You know, when I went, it was kind of like, you know, dilapidated. Now a lot of parts like a sci-fi metropolis. It's crazy. Mm-hmm. So it's like, that's where I would.
This sci-fi metropolis brought to you courtesy of Huawei and Samsung.
So if you have China looking at North Korea and being like, this state next to us is a danger to world peace. They're awful for their own people. We should go in and remove the government. I don't inherently have a problem with China doing that. Right? I think
there are North Korean defectors who talked about they had to eat grass to stay alive.
Yeah.
And all of their children died trying to leave. Like, it's crazy.
So if Xi Jinping is listening to this, no one would judge you.
Just be cool about it, man.
Yeah. Just be like, in fact, it's like, if you invade Taiwan, there's going to be a giant fight over it. It's a porcupine. Everyone's going to see you the villain. It's going to bring trade to a halt. If you take North Korea, everyone will think you're a hero. So again, the thing is, right, there's an ideal world that we want to be moving towards, and then there's the world we actually inherit, and there's bad actors, and you got to deal with them some way. And often when you're in government, you got to make either or decisions to some extent. Now, sometimes we don't. Sometimes we meddle long, beyond our sort of purview, and people get sort of obsessed with this. But I don't like, this is kind of a cop-out answer, but I think these kinds of things are not always super clear-cut, and you have to make pragmatic decisions when you're in government sometimes.
Can I even add that you have to make moment-by-moment decisions? You have to be able to change course, and I think that's the hard part about what you asked, right?
Okay.
Because I kind of feel like we had an attitude in Afghanistan that came out of World War II.
Yep.
Right? So they were not able to like adapt to the idea that it wasn't going to work, and then they took the ideas out of World War II because that was the last time America had this like kind of great foray into like, world fighting abroad and across the world, multiple fronts, and then tried to apply it to, a new millennia. And I think that the lesson that's learned is you have to be able to pivot. You have to be able to change. So if you say, well, this is going to be okay, and this is how we're going to do it forever, or this is how we're going to try and unilaterally, we're going to try and enforce this in every situation, I think you wind up back in the same place. So, I kind of like, well, let's go back to Venezuela. Like, you probably would have had about 10,000 Marines on the ground already in 30 years ago, if this had happened. There would have been a huge surge of a peacekeeping force. We have ships off the coast, but we would have landed troops by now, and we would be arresting or bringing people. We'd have 52 people, a deck of cards, whatever, right? We have warrants on all of those people in government. Like there are indictments in American courts that you could go serve those warrants, and that's what happened to Maduro. So I think the difference now is that there are no troops, and that they're watching, right? and they're watching with the big stick, and then sometimes you use the big stick, and sometimes you use the carrot, and sometimes after using the big stick you use the carrot, and sometimes after using the carrot you use the big stick. And I think that that's smart, because I'm not saying that I'm not saying that this administration is doing everything right.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying that this is one thing that I see that they didn't do wrong, right? They did not send, like, they did not turn Caracas into a landing strip.
Yeah.
See what I'm saying?
I definitely think this is evidence that some lessons have been learned from the past. Whether they're the right ones, I honestly
think it's a big difference even from 8 years ago.
Yeah, I agree.
Right?
What I would say here, right? I would say whether America has learned the right lessons or not will be judged first and foremost by God, and then second, like, by history. I think being too optimistic or cynical right now is likely to get us into problems.
Okay, let me make my last argument before you close up. I think one thing we need to agree on, and I think you will agree on this, that the way we progressed in terms of understanding of humanity, we learned from our mistakes and said, now we're not going to repeat those mistakes. If you want me to tell you the examples, what happened in World War I, the use of gas, right? We said, no gas in the war. That's unethical, blah, blah, blah. Second World War, there was use of chemical weapons, and there was use of genetic mutation or whatnot, and then there comes a board in the United States who says you cannot do certain things on human beings. There is some rules on that, right? So that's how we learned. So unless we do not recognize the evil, the bad, right, we will not be able to correct it. That's my whole argument from the start of this show or this podcast, that there is a bad, and the bad is the standards that you are setting, because the standards you are setting for yourself, of course, you say, according to us, this is according to us good or bad. Then for India, their good or bad is according to them. For Pakistan, their good or bad is according to them. And the time India comes to power, they will dictate the terms, or say China comes to power, they will dictate the terms. So I think at the end of the day, as a humanity, we need to progress, not individual human being or a country.
Yeah, so here's what I'd say from a sort of Christian perspective here. Governments are always going to make pragmatic calls as to what's going to be best in a given moment. Perhaps those calls will be right, perhaps these calls will be wrong. So perhaps what's happened in Iran and Venezuela inches us one step closer to World War III. Perhaps this moves us further away from World War III, right? It could go either way, right?
Yeah.
But we have to work towards the individual transformation of hearts and minds, right? Mm-hmm. So, as China gets more powerful, my hope is by the time it gets to be this sort of unstoppable force, it's full of the Chinese Christians are making inroads into the government to the extent that they wouldn't even want to, like, invade Taiwan and take it over, right? If governments make pragmatic moves at times, okay, fine, that's how the world works. That is how the world works. But we have to advocate for human flourishing everywhere, and we need to not be sort of blinded by, oh yeah, we're the good guys, you're the bad guys, and we need to see everyone sort of holistically. And perhaps intervention in these situations shows that we've learned from our mistakes. Perhaps it will show we have learned from our mistakes. But whatever happens, we have to keep our eyes open. We have to be looking clearly, and we have to ask ourselves uncomfortable questions, not just sort of beat a nationalistic drum and accept whatever result and act like we got it right the whole time. So thank you guys for listening to Christ and Caliphate. We'll be back next time.